Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into your personal guide to mental resilience. We're going to look at exactly how to outsmart your brain's default settings. And to really understand what we're up against here, I want to kick things off with a super specific, everyday scenario that I guarantee every single one of us has experienced at least once.
Picture this. You're at work, or maybe out with friends, and over the course of the day, you get 10 wonderful, incredibly genuine compliments. One person says, "Hey, great presentation." Another tells you, "You look really good today." Someone else chimes in, "Wow, that was a smart idea." You're feeling absolutely on top of the world, right? But then, right as you're wrapping up your day, someone drops just one casual piece of criticism. They say, "Honestly, I didn't really like it."
And bam! Suddenly, your entire day pivots. You completely forget those 10 pieces of praise. They literally just vanish. Instead, that one negative comment totally takes over. It loops in your head endlessly. You're thinking about it while you're driving home. You're agonizing over it while you're brushing your teeth. And when you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, just desperately trying to sleep, yep, it's right there, replaying on a loop. So let's get into part one, the one bad comment, and why your brain actually prioritizes threat over happiness. Why on earth do we torture ourselves like this? Well, the uncomfortable truth is that your brain just isn't designed for happiness. It all boils down to something called the negativity bias. This is a psychological tendency where your brain prioritizes, remembers, and gives way more emotional weight to negative events compared to positive ones. And this is absolutely crucial to grasp, because once you spot this bias in action, you realize it acts like this invisible filter shaping your entire perception of life. It literally dictates what you notice and what you ignore. Which brings us to part two, Velcro and Teflon brains, and the literal biology of human memory. See, we aren't just talking about being in a bad mood here. We're talking about the literal biology of your memory. These negative experiences are physically processed differently by the neural pathways in your brain. Your mind literally acts like Velcro for the bad stuff. When something negative happens, your brain throws high attention at it. It forces you into this mental rehearsal. You know that 2 a.m. looping we just talked about? It sticks. But for the good experiences, your brain acts like slippery Teflon. A compliment, a moment of joy, a tiny win, it just slides right off without leaving a mark, unless we actively force it to stick. And you can see this massive imbalance everywhere in your daily life. Just look at relationships. A couple can completely forget weeks of affection and shared joy just because of one harsh argument. Or think about the workplace. You could get outstanding feedback from your boss for 6 solid months, but one tiny critique on a Friday afternoon, it will absolutely ruin your entire weekend. And online, it's almost comical. You could have 99 supportive, lovely comments on a post, and your brain will completely ignore every single one of them to obsess over the one anonymous person who wrote, "This is stupid." One negative interaction easily outweighs 20 positive ones. Now, what's really fascinating about this bias is how it doesn't just make us feel bad inside. It actively changes our behavior out in the real world. Because we hold on to the negative, we actually start avoiding opportunities. It dramatically increases our fear of rejection, and it makes us hesitate big time before taking risks. It makes you remember your failures vividly, while your successes just sort of fade into the background. That is exactly how someone can succeed 10 times, fail once, and still walk away feeling like a total failure. So let's explore part three, ancient brains, modern world, and what happens when our survival software meets the smartphone. To understand why we do this to ourselves, why we have this weird glitch in our system, we have to look back at our ancestors. Because historically speaking, negativity bias wasn't a glitch at all. It was a feature. It kept us alive. As this quote captures perfectly, the human who ignored rustling bushes, saying, "It's probably fine," didn't always survive long enough to pass on their genes. Ignoring good news rarely killed anyone in the ancient world, but ignoring bad news, like a predator in the bushes or the threat of being excluded from your tribe, that was a fatal mistake. So evolution rewarded brains that overreacted to danger. But here's the problem. We now have this massive mismatch between our hardware and our environments. Just look at this comparison. Back in the ancient era, rustling bushes and social exclusion actually led to life or death consequences. You needed that huge spike of adrenaline. But in the modern era, our threats are emails from our boss, social media comments, and push notifications. Yet, because we are carrying around that exact same ancient brain, those modern digital annoyances falsely trigger the exact same life or death nervous system panic. Your body literally reacts to a critical email as if a tiger just walked into the room. This ancient wiring explains exactly why we consume information the way we do. Imagine seeing a headline that reads, "Millions of flights landed safely today." Nobody's clicking that, right? It feels completely optional. But if the headline says, "Plane crash caught on camera," boom, you have our instant attention. Your brain treats that danger as urgent information it needs to process for your very survival. Now, combine that ancient negativity bias with modern media algorithms, and things get legitimately challenging for our mental health. Tech platforms quickly figured out a simple truth: fear keeps people engaged. Anger keeps people clicking. So the algorithms naturally amplify crime waves, economic collapse, deadly diseases, fears about AI, and human conflict. They don't amplify calm optimism. They amplify threat, simply because your ancient brain literally cannot look away from a threat. And the consequence of all this is pretty profound. The more emotionally intense, sticky information you consume, the more your brain starts truly believing a false narrative that the world is terrible, even if your personal life is totally stable. Like you have a roof over your head, you're healthy, your family is safe. This constant barrage of curated negativity creates a heavily distorted perception of reality that feels entirely real to your nervous system. So let's wrap this up with part 4, building your mental resilience, where we'll cover actionable steps for daily practice. So how do we actually fight back? Well, we obviously aren't going to evolve out of this overnight, but we absolutely can build mental resilience against our own biology. We can synthesize the solution down to these 3 highly actionable steps for your daily practice. Step 1, notice it. Realize that you aren't seeing reality objectively right now, you're seeing it through a threat detection filter. Step 2, deliberately savor positive experiences. Since your brain acts like Teflon for the good stuff, you actually have to consciously hold on to a compliment or a win for a few extra seconds. You have to force your brain to reinforce it. And step 3, curate your consumption. Audit your outrage-heavy information diet. Remember, just because a piece of news or a comment feels emotionally intense doesn't mean it's actually important. Ultimately, at the end of your life, the quality of your experience isn't going to be based on what happened to you. It's going to depend entirely on what your mind chose to hold on to. If you leave it unchecked, your brain is just going to cling to the embarrassments, the criticisms, and the bad days by default. But awareness gives you the power to stop blindly trusting every dark emotional signal your brain produces. I want to leave you with this final, incredibly powerful question to keep right in your back pocket. The next time your brain starts ringing the alarm bells over a single bad comment, a stressful email, or a scary headline, just pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, is this actually the most important thing in my life right now, or is it just the most negative? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this guide helps you build a stronger, more resilient mindset.